So a lot of us parents love to take photos of our kids, and we like sharing those photos with people who are important in our lives. But if you're like me, maybe you're wondering, should I still be sharing my kids' images on social media? You know, with the state of the world, with the state of technology, and just some things that can be done with technology, is it safe? Well, I want to talk to you about my transition into only showing photos that don't show my kids' faces, and how I've been able to still take good photos that, as a photographer, I'm proud of, but also keep my kids' images secret. Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. My name is Zach. I'm a photographer and videographer, but more important than that, I'm a husband and a father. And today I'm coming at this video kind of more so through my perspective as a dad, because a couple months back, I came to a decision that I was going to stop sharing photos that had my kids' faces in them. Or if I was going to share those photos, I was going to hide their faces. And so I want to talk to you about that today, and why, for me at least, it's become important to do that, but also how I'm still able to take photos of my kids that are beautiful images, but keep their identities private. You know, before I get into the how I take these photos, let me touch on why I came to this decision and why I think it's important for us to at least think about this. I'm not trying to tell you to take all your photos of your kids off social media. I'm not trying to tell you what to do. I just want to share why I came to this decision. And honestly, I don't have the strongest opinion on it. For me, I just felt uneasy. That was what sparked it. I felt uneasy about showing my kids' faces on this YouTube channel, on Instagram. I decided that I'd rather be safe than sorry. I don't think that if you're still posting photos of your kids, that's totally fine. Like, do what you feel is comfortable. But for me, I just didn't feel comfortable with it. And so I decided, you know what, I'm just going to stop sharing photos of my kids' faces. I'm going to make my Instagram private and start, getting rid of people who follow me that I don't know. And I'll create a new Instagram for this channel that is public, but I only show photos of my kids that don't show their faces. And in these YouTube videos, I'm going to start, either blurring their faces out or not showing photos that have their face in it. At the same time, when I made this decision, I didn't just want to take photos and just slap an emoji on the kid's face or only blur out their face, because to me, while that's an option, just as a photographer, I don't love the idea of throwing an emoji on a photo that, I've taken. It's just not something that I like. I don't think it's wrong for people to do it, but I just don't like it. And so I wanted to get creative in how I take photos, sometimes how I edit photos, to keep my kids' faces private. So let me share with you some of the ways I take photos to keep their faces private, starting off with framing and the perspective that you show in your photos. A lot of the images that I've been taking nowadays are looking over my kids' shoulders, right? I'm seeing the back of their heads instead of the front of their face. And for me, these have created some really cool photos where I feel like there's a little bit more intrigue created in the image. It kind of creates a little bit of an emotion there. But also it can still be a beautiful image that just conceals their face, right? So I think about this photo of my son looking out at his grandpa making dinner. Or I think about, again, my son looking out the window of our plane as we're getting ready to take off. And these are photos that they still tell a story and they still evoke emotion, but we just don't see my son's face. Another way is through silhouettes and backlighting. When you take a photo where your subject is in between yourself and the primary light, whether it be the sun or artificial lights, you're able to use that to hide their face, right? Maybe it's a darker situation and your subject is completely silhouetted. There's no color, there's no details. That's a beautiful way to take an image and still keep their identity safe. Or maybe it's backlit shots where the sun is shining into your camera and that light flare is able to kind of hide the subject's face. Another thing that I've started to do recently is take more detailed focus shots, right? So when my daughter is helping decorate the Christmas tree, I take a photo of her little hand putting up an ornament. Or when she's playing chess with her uncle, I take a picture of her hand moving the chess piece, right? And these photos, while they're not showing her face, they're still telling a story, and we're able to see that in the image. And I think this is just a beautiful way to still tell the story, to still invoke emotion, just without showing your kid's face. Next is just obstructing, your kid's face with certain elements of the environment, right? This can be through, things like hats or toys, but it can also just be with your natural positioning. A lot of the times my wife and I will now, move our bodies in such a way so that our bodies are blocking our kid's face from the camera. I look at this image of my son and I at the garden, and my body is mostly blocking his face. Yes, you can still see a little bit of it, but most of his face is obscured by my body. And that, I think, still tells a beautiful story, but it also keeps his privacy. Along with that, there are still times where, for me, I still show partial sides of their faces. So you may get to see a little bit of my kid's face, and I'm okay with that. We're not showing their full face. Again, I'm not one side or the other on this argument. I just don't feel as comfortable sharing their full faces. And so for me, even if it's just you're seeing them from the side or you're only seeing a little bit of their face, that obstruction causes enough that I think it makes the image still fine to use. I think there are plenty of different ways that we can frame our images to still show emotion, to still show the story without seeing the kid's face. And it feels natural, all right? This image of my daughter and I ice skating, like you would look at this image and you wouldn't necessarily think I was trying to hide my daughter's face. You would just say, wow, that's a beautiful moment of a father and daughter enjoying something fun together, right? And so I think that there are things that we can do to keep our kids' faces private, keep them safe, while still just making the photos feel natural and having emotion and telling a story. Another way is to incorporate motion blur into your images. Maybe you can slow your shutter speed down so that their faces aren't clear because they're moving and there's a blurriness to it, right? For me, in a lot of these videos, you'll see that I just put an opacity filter over my kid's face. And you can do that, but you can also do that naturally by slowing down the shutter speed. And I think in that way, you're hiding your kid's identity, but you're also creating more emotion into your photo as well. Now, all those things can be done in how you take your photos, but you can also do things in the editing process to keep your kid's identity safe. And first off, like I said, you can just hide their face with an opacity filter, or if you don't mind the emojis on the face, then just do that. But there are some other things, some creative things that you can do as well. And one of my favorites is to just lessen the quality of the image, right? Bring the grain up, bring the colors and the saturation down a little bit. Things like that can just kind of hide the details of your kid's face. Maybe you can bring the shadows up, bring the darks up, so you're kind of putting your kid's face in a little bit more darkness. You can also crop in so that you're not seeing the face, you're not seeing the full face. You can change photos from normal color to black and white and increase the contrast so that, again, you're not seeing the details in your kid's face. All in all, I think for me, this is just a decision I've come to that I don't feel comfortable showing my kids' faces. And it's not the strongest conviction in the world. I'm sure I could get challenged by it. There are many days where I'm like, man, this would be so much easier if I didn't care about this. But I do at some level care about this. And so these are things that I'm doing to still take beautiful photos, but also keep my kids' identity safe. And I still take plenty of photos of my kids' faces. They just don't get put out publicly. So if you're a parent and you're thinking about this and you're wondering, man, is there a way to take photos of my kids that doesn't risk their privacy? Yes, there are ways. It just takes getting creative and it takes being persistent with it. That's the biggest thing I've learned. Like figuring out how to take the photos and how to edit them, that was easy for me. For me, the hard part is sticking to it and being like, yeah, it would be a lot easier if I didn't care. And if I was like, I'll just show my kids' faces in my YouTube videos, that would be so much easier. But if this is a decision I've come to, it's one I want to stick to until at least I find evidence that it doesn't matter. And in that case, maybe things will change. But for now, this is a conviction I have, and it's a conviction I want to stick to. And so if you're like me, I hope this has at least encouraged you. You can still take beautiful, beautiful photos of your kids without showing their faces, without, risking their privacy. And maybe this may be all for naught. Maybe I'm overreacting, but that's okay. This is my personal opinion, and at least it's something creative that can be done. So if you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button, subscribe if you're not already, and I'll see you in the next video.